Hey, this is Mark Pattison back again with another episode of Finding Your Summit. Okay, this week we're taking a right-hand turn and we're going to talk about relationships. A couple weeks ago, I heard this woman talk and I was really fascinated by it. And so I wanted to talk to her myself and kind of get to the bottom of some of these different subjects that she goes over. Her name is Laura Doyle, and she has written a book called The Surrendered Wife. So before any of you start freaking out about what that title means, I really encourage you to listen to this podcast, dig in. She goes through the different intimacy skills that she learned when she was going through a tough time. So I'm a person that went through the same situation. So, I'm trying to better my game and try to understand how I can do better and have a better understanding in relationships and whatnot. So as always, we appreciate going into iTunes, ranking, giving us reviews. It does help us in the different rankings and standings and whatnot in terms of giving us more exposure. So stay tuned. This is a great episode. You're really going to enjoy Laura. That's it. Here we go. Really super excited today to talk to Laura Doyle. And Laura is a author and a speaker and a coach and all kinds of just really amazing things. Again, the name of my podcast is called Finding Your Summit. And this week we take a little bit different angle, talking about relationships. And so first of all, Laura, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much. It's great to be here, Mark.
Oh, man. I heard you on another podcast now that I've joined this podcast world. And, 5 years ago, I was going through a really difficult time. I ended up getting divorced. And, having listened to you talk, was really inspiring to me. And, I think a lot of the things that I wish I would have had some of these tools to better cope. And, maybe I'd be in a different position today. But what happened, and I am a mountain climber, and I have played in the NFL and done these other things, but relationships are so key, right? I mean, when you ultimately, we all will leave this planet, you'll look back and you won't be thinking about how much money you made. You'll be thinking about the relationships that are dear to you, and so I've invested since that point in time so much into personal development growth and how I can become a better person. So what I wanted to do is bring somebody, an expert like you on and just let's talk about it and what you found and how you got there.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I was in a similar situation to yours, Mark, unfortunately, and it was a problem of my own making. I was really so amazed that my handsome, thoughtful, smart husband, funny guy would marry me. It was like the best day of my life. But then just a few years later, I couldn't understand why he didn't want to spend any time with me. And at the time, I was trying to improve him. I was trying to show him how to be more ambitious and how to dress better and how to eat healthier, what to do at work. And I thought, why is he not wanting to spend any time with me? He doesn't even want to make love to me. And so I thought, well, something must be wrong with him. It can't be me. So I'll just bring him to counseling. The counselor will fix him, and then I can finally be happy. And so we did go to marriage counseling, and that's when I realized it was totally hopeless. And
So why do you, I've got the same opinion, and to anybody who's a counselor, I'm sure they're going to have a different opinion than that, but I'm interested from your standpoint, why you felt that marriage counseling is a waste of time. I've got my opinion, but I'm curious on what yours is.
It was worse than a waste of time. It did damage. It did some serious damage in my marriage. And as I look back, I mean, certainly to be a little more accountable than I was then, it's a hideout for hypocrites. I wasn't going to work on myself. I was going to be the dutiful wife while she fixed him, because he was clearly the problem. So that was one part, but another even worse part, and there's even more than this that I don't like about marriage counseling, but another thing was that what I didn't know then is that respect for men is like oxygen in a marriage. Would you agree, Mark?
Oh, yeah. I mean, it's like your survival mechanism of making you just light up or wilt, and yeah, really, really interesting word.
Yeah, so the very first thing you do in marriage counseling, typically, this is what we did, is so we're sitting there in front of the stranger, this therapist, and I'm telling her everything that's wrong with my husband. And that's the opposite of respect. That's the most disrespectful thing you could do. And so all I did was dig my hole deeper, and I couldn't understand why he was so defensive. Another thing, downfall of marriage counseling. I laugh now, but it wasn't funny at the time. Let me tell you. And that is it was very feelings based. Our counselor was a woman, and we went for years. Mark, I'm sad to say, and so we'd always start out with, "How do you feel?" You know, you'd have to answer the question, "How do you feel?" I'd get so mad because he would say, "I feel hungry." You know, "I feel with my hands." It's like, oh my God, my husband's defective. He doesn't know how to describe how he's feeling. And it's, I've since learned that women are the ones with the emotional brilliance, and our husbands depend on us for that. And so it's almost like asking a woman who's wearing a bathing suit and eating a piece of pizza, "How much do you weigh?" I mean, you just wouldn't do that, right? So it's not a polite question in the male culture, is what I've come to realize now. So those are just 3 quick examples of why I'm not a fan of marriage. Oh, okay. One more. Number 4 is, you got me on a roll, Mark, but number 4 is that, you wouldn't want to get, let's say, fitness advice from somebody with a spare tire. You wouldn't want to get financial advice from somebody who's on the verge of bankruptcy. And with marriage counselors, you don't know. I mean, some of them are divorced 3 times, and some of them are in the process of getting divorced. And I know this now because a lot of them come to my organization for support with their relationships. And they actually, they tell me outright, yeah, marriage counseling doesn't work. And it's kind of tragic for them because here they've invested so much time in this career, and they truly wanted to serve. These are good people we're talking about, right? They're not bad guys. And the system just is so broken and it doesn't work. Anyway, so that's where I left off in my story, which is, totally hopeless, thinking, okay, I got to divorce this guy, or I'm going to live the rest of my life in a loveless relationship. And I was too embarrassed to get divorced, Mark. My friends and family had been to the wedding just not too many years before. So as a last-ditch effort, I asked women who'd been married for what seemed like an eternity, which was 15 years, what their secrets were. And the things they said didn't even make sense to me. I remember one woman said, "I try never to criticize my husband, no matter how much it seems like he deserves it." And I was like, have you got anything else?
So let me ask you this. I want to go deeper into that, but I think there's for me, there was definitely a pride, right? I mean, nobody in the history of my family tree had ever been divorced, right? So there was this, for come hell or high water, I was in it forever, right? Despite my misery and things weren't working and whatnot. And again, it takes 2. So this isn't all about her. This is, as we came together, that dynamic was not a fit. But there was 2 things. One was staying committed for the long haul versus maybe that's not the best thing to happen or change our strategy. And 2 was for me, and maybe this is because I'm coming from a male perspective, but talking to people about this, right? Just opening up to others, like, what I'm doing is failing, and just being authentic about that.
I think that's brilliant, Mark. I just so appreciate your humility about it because for a long time, I tried to keep appearances up too. Like I remember we would have a big old fight on the way to the party. We'd be late to the party because we pulled over to fight. And then we'd get there and act like everything's fine. So we were really, and I'm not sure if people knew or not, right? I mean, in my mind, I was keeping up appearances, but who knows if I really was. But it was definitely a part of what kept me stuck, because without admitting that there was a problem, I could never get a solution. I thought I was admitting it because we went to marriage counseling, right? So, but it wasn't until I started being really authentic with just women I knew and people I met, and then just asking for their advice and being humble enough to listen. And even though it didn't match anything I'd grown up with, you know what? My parents are divorced, so I had a failed recipe I was following. So it was going to be absolutely necessary for me to change my strategy, as you say.
So let me ask you this then, because I think what you're talking about is what you're saying to me. What I heard was, hey, something's not working, and now I'm going to go talk to my girlfriends and try to figure out advice or whatever. And I think the slippery slope can be that when women get together, that one of two things can happen. Either you're going to be around voices that are going to uplift you, or it's kind of like the bitch session, right?
That's
on
right.
like everything that's negative about their husbands.
That's right. There was a temptation to male bash, and that is something I used to engage in quite a bit. And now it just is intolerable to me. It turns my stomach because, that's my husband they're talking about. That's my husband, my father, my brother, right? So,
well, then the other thing too, it feeds back to that one word that we all want, which is respect, right?
That's right. That's right. And it was interesting because at first I thought of like respect as something I had to give to. You have to give it to your boss and to your parents, right, or to a teacher, somebody in authority. But what I've come to see is like, I want a respectful relationship. I want to be a respectful wife. And it actually behooves me. He's the man I picked. Why wouldn't I give him respect? It serves me. So the joke was kind of on me, thinking like I was doing this, for him because he needed it. And it turns out it's done nothing but bring me a lot of dignity and calm and inner peace. It's like, let there be peace on earth and let it begin with me. Well, let there be respect in my marriage and let it begin with me. So I've been surprised how everything that I've done to save my marriage has actually been like the best self-improvement program I ever undertook.
So, so what I'm looking for is to now that I'm going through all this discovery on my own is phenomenal, right? And I don't think you can get to phenomenal unless you do the things for yourself rather than point the gun like it's everybody else's problem. And that's kind of your point.
Yeah.
And the thing that I want to talk about, because I think it's really interesting. You were so generous to send me your book. It's called The Surrendered Wife. And I think for a lot of people, that is kind of a controversial title until you get into the book and you really understand what you're talking about. And so let's talk about, the self-improvement, the things that you discovered and what led to this book, and especially this title and what that really means.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people hear surrendered wife and they think, oh, that means obedient wife or subservient wife or something. And they get really, I get my share of hate mail. But for me, surrendered is just this beautiful spiritual word. It's what we all have to do when we're stuck in traffic. You might wish the traffic would move, but you can't make it move. So you could use that time to listen to music you love or talk on the phone. And you could be grateful that you had that time. And that's surrender. So a surrendered wife knows she can't change anyone besides herself. So she doesn't try. She doesn't tell her husband what to wear or what to do at work or how to dress. My husband's been dressing himself since before I was born. And somehow I made myself the expert on how he should dress. And so it was in surrendering. And that was kind of my mantra at the time, surrender to help myself relinquish that inappropriate control of my husband. And it really was very difficult. I didn't see how I was going to be able to do it at first. And I've since created a world famous system with the 6 intimacy skills to help women do that. And it's interesting, Mark, because I appreciate your inquiry into this, and just your honesty about, gosh, I have this failure and what I'm looking for now is phenomenal. And one of the things that is a big secret in that most people don't know it is that women are actually the keepers of the relationship. And I'm sure this probably resonates for you when you talk about like you were in it forever with your marriage. And women are the ones that initiate the most divorce. In fact, among college-educated women, it's as high as 90%, according to some studies. So if you think about the person who's being willing to walk away, really has the most power in that relationship. And we women have more power in many ways. We're the keepers of sex, right? We're the ones that say if it's going to happen or not. Men usually have a greater desire for sex than women. And then we are the ones with the the tail feathers in the human species. We're like, there's ladies' night at the bar. There's never gentlemen's night. And that's because the owners know if I fill this place up with women, the men will happily pay to come in here. So we have just this incredible power. And it's just like with Spider-Man, with great power comes great responsibility. And I think we women have a responsibility to learn the intimacy skills that lead to feeling playful and connected instead of tense and distant. It's up to us really what we want to experience. So, and what I've seen over and over again, in fact, I've asked thousands of men this question. And so even though you're divorced, I'm going to ask you this question too. So Mark, how important was it to you when you were married that your wife was happy?
It meant everything. And part of that too is if you were to ask my, hundreds of friends who know me best, what my DNA is all about, it's always the glass being half full, right? I wake up every day with a smile and charging, and every day is a new day and an opportunity to get better.
Yeah. I mean, I love that. And the answer you gave is the same answer I've gotten every single time I've ever asked a man, and I've asked thousands. I mean, they always say it's everything. It's the most important thing. In the UK, they told me it's imperative. So this is what we see from men again and again. So it's kind of interesting. It's sad. I get a lot of heartbreaking emails from men saying, I read your stuff and this is exactly what I want my wife to know. And how do I get it to her? And I'm like, I don't know. Hopefully, my new book is called The Empowered Wife, because we knew that this surrender wife.
So why is that then? So the opposite is what we're talking about. Is if you've got all these men saying, "Hey, I wake up happy. My wife's happiness is everything. I'll do whatever it takes. I'll be the first guy to get up in the morning, go to work, come home. All that kind of stuff." Then the opposite of that, of what you're saying, is that these wives aren't happy, right?
Yeah. So I know for me, when I was stuck in my misery, I got really attached to it. I'm sad to say, it's embarrassing to admit now. I mean, I just got really caught up in housework and my job and, paying the mortgage. And I was pretty it's this pattern where you put everybody else first, right? And then making Laura happy just was always at the bottom of the list. So of course it never got done. And today I have a totally different perspective on that. I think I was waiting around for my husband to make me happy. And I know that sounds silly when I say it now, but that important job is mine. And once I took responsibility for my own happiness, it really meant doing at least 3 things a day just for my own delight. Frivolous fun, not anything that was going to improve my cardio fitness or reduce greenhouse gas emissions, or, it's just having a cup of coffee with a friend, or taking a bath, or, I love to play volleyball. So that's one for me, or singing at the top of my lungs, or spending some extra time in the shower, getting a nap, or, just, talking to my sister on the phone. Just things that were meant to delight me, just that. And that's made a big difference, because it turns out, since the most important thing to my husband is for me to be happy, me making myself happy made us both feel good.
Yeah, I think the balance for a lot of women, I mean, this is just I'm not an expert in any of this, this is just me from 30,000 feet, right? Mm-hmm. And what it seems like to me is like, at least the folks that I've been around, is that you have all these really smart, dynamic women who have gone to, in my case, the University of Washington, but gone to college, right? And now they've gone out in the workforce, they're working, they've got a lot of self-worth because, they're getting paid, they're doing something that they want to do, and then life happens, and next thing they're getting married, and next thing kids come, right? And then somehow or another, for many, not all, but for many, they find themselves kind of at the bottom of the food chain in terms of they're running the household, but it's all about being that selfless, wonderful woman that's out doing for their kids and everybody else. And then it's kind of a thankless job, the most important job of the thankless. And so because the days get so busy, I think those doing 3 things or something gets lost, right?
That's
and
right.
then so it becomes a domino effect, right?
It's absolutely true. And I love what you're referencing about this. You get your education, you're successful at work. And I think one of the things where I went wrong was, I'm a feminist to this day. I'm very much in favor of women having as many choices about their careers as possible. And I think, I was afraid that if we said, hey, women and men are not the same, that meant that women would lose in the workplace. And that doesn't turn out to be true at all. It turns out we have different strengths, but because we are an entirely different gender, we're not just smaller, less hairy men. But what it means is that for me, it was really interesting to discover that the goals at work are entirely different than the goals in my relationship. In my relationship, I just want my husband to tell me I'm beautiful, I want to hold hands, I want to laugh together, I want him to make bedroom eyes at me. And at work, it's all about improving the bottom line and getting that promotion. And so they're totally different goals. And what we see is kind of a failure for women to change their hats. And that's unfortunate because husbands and boyfriends don't like to be managed. So I know my husband dated a third grade teacher before he met me, and he broke up with her because she would say things to him like she was still with 8-year-olds, right? She'd say, go sit down, put that away. And it wasn't very attractive. So just this idea of being able to change your work hat and put on a soft, receptive, feminine hat has been very powerful for us. I know, I just remember when I first started learning about this stuff, right? So my marriage was just wall-to-wall hostility. There was a lot of bickering, really right on the brink of divorce, as I was saying earlier. And it was just not very long after I started practicing the 6 intimacy skills that I walked through the door and my husband's face lit up, because he was happy to see me again. And that had been gone for so long. And so I thought, wow, this is working. And today I have the kind of relationship where I'm not, a couple of weeks ago, I was brushing crumbs off the counter and he goes, oh, don't move. And he got out his phone to take my picture like I'm the supermodel that he's been married to for 28 years. And I think to him I am, just because, I feel like I have kind of an unfair advantage just knowing these intimacy skills and how they just inspire him to want to make me the happiest woman in the world.
Yeah, no, that's just great, and it sounds like either you're there at phenomenal or on the brink somewhere, working towards that, and it goes
phenomenal.
yeah, and it does go both ways, right? And going back to your other comment though about the neg type of thing, and in what I've always found really strange is, and I'm not quite sure how this whole dynamic happens, but where I see these relationships where the guy, the husband in this case, is asking for permission to go, like, I want to go on a mountain bike ride, or I want to go play golf, or I want to go, on a fishing trip or something. And so they're saying, hey, can I go do this?
That's right.
And it's just, I think the word structure is different. It's just so bizarre. It's like you're talking to your mother, right? And when you're a little kid, and that just doesn't make sense to me versus I'm going to play golf. Honey, by the way, is there any conflict? I mean, it just seems like that I'm not thinking about versus I'm asking you whether or not you can allow me to go play golf. It doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, I think that's totally true. And it has such a terrible effect on the relationship, because it's true. It is very mothering, and it's really, it goes back to the wife. For me, I know in my relationship, I really trained my husband, like, don't make any decisions without checking with me. And then I complained, God, you can't make any decisions. So it was a catch-22. And even worse, men are not sexually attracted to their mothers. So if I'm acting like his mother, that's going to have a chilling effect in the bedroom. And then women, conversely, not attracted to their sons. And you feel, it's that old joke. It's like, oh, I have 3 kids. One of them's 33, right? And the other 2 are 5 and 7 or whatever, right? So you hear a lot of women saying this. Yeah. And then he's saying, can I go mountain bike riding? It really just contributes to it. But so for me, it really was amazing that when and we were there. My husband had no interest in making love to me. I remember standing with my hands on my hips while he was watching TV and saying, the average couple has sex 2.5 times per week, and we haven't done it in 2 weeks, so I think we should do it, right? It's just totally not attractive at all, embarrassingly. But when I went back to acting more like his lover and less like his mother, it was actually a much more vulnerable feeling. I remember, the butterflies in my stomach came back. I was like, oh my gosh, this is scary. No wonder I was avoiding this. And that was kind of true. That was a good metaphor for the whole thing, because when I was just the armchair quarterback of my husband's life, my life was going by and nobody was at the wheel of that life. And once I relinquished inappropriate control of him, my whole life emerged. I wrote a book that became a New York Times bestseller and is published in 19 languages in 30 countries. I have 5 books now, and I have my own TV series, and I got to go on national TV. People asked me to speak to live audiences with hundreds of people, and it was all terrifying, Mark. I was not wanting to show up for it. It seemed much safer to just lay back and criticize what he was doing. So it's really been a journey of finding my courage to show up for the things that I'm called to do in life. And that's been much more gratifying and exhilarating, of course, but definitely scarier.
So let's talk about the flip side of that, right? And I do want to ask you more about these 6 intimacy skills that you mentioned in a second. But I want to ask, because it takes 2, right? So for any women listening to this podcast, they would say, hey, I'm doing all these things. I'm working on myself, but what about that guy over there? Right, because he's not getting off the couch and he's not doing. And I know there's probably, certain barriers where if the person is abusive and other things like that, that's a deal breaker. But I'm just talking about, the guys. Yeah. The guys got to show up too.
Mark, I mean, from my perspective, women have such a degree of power in the relationships, which it kind of makes sense. From the time we're little girls, we start thinking about relationships and dreaming about them and talking about them with our friends. It's something we care deeply about. And I know men do too, but it's just been really eye-opening and gratifying for me as a wife who really did put all the blame on her husband to see, I held the key all along. And it's kind of funny, the empowered wife, I'll talk, men will say, what can I do? What can I read? They want to do something too. And I'll be like, well, you can read page 73. That's relevant to you.
Yeah.
Really is about, it's for women. And he doesn't even need to know. Here's what we hear. Women will get the intimacy skills and they'll say in about 2 weeks, he doesn't even know she's reading the book. He has no idea. And 2 weeks later, she'll say, I feel like I have a new husband. And really, he's responding to her differently, right? We can't change anybody else, but you can change how you show up, and then people respond to you differently. And so I really see women having a lot of power. I mean, I hope that men who are listening feel vindicated in a way that I think most husbands, I see it again and again. The vast majority of husbands are showing up as best they can and trying to make her happy. I heard a husband story just this week where he said, I took the family on a vacation to Big Bear and I was driving everybody back home. And I'm thinking I did this nice thing, spending this time with the family, showing him a good time. And his wife started yelling at him because she goes, I can't believe you would eat those noisy potato chips while I'm trying to sleep. And he's driving him back and he's like, a little gratitude, maybe. So I think one of the things that happens is that gratitude goes missing. He doesn't feel like her hero. He doesn't feel respected. And all of that just, it's so much in the wife's realm to create that and nurture that. So anyway, I hope that men who are struggling in this situation feel vindicated, and men who are still married, I do want to say, let me get my hands on your wife. Let me give you, get her the book and let's see what's possible. I do have a lot of, I have a coach whose husband asked his wife to read one of my books, and now she's really just taken that on as her own journey of self-discovery. And that's what we see, that the women have this power to just make it amazing.
No, I love that. I mean, it makes a lot of sense. And the thing that made a lot of sense to me, what you just were talking about is, the action creates a reaction.
That's right.
Right. And so with women having the power and the more emotional ones, by doing some slight changes, things can happen. When I emerged out of my divorce, and it was a very difficult time, and I've got these two beautiful, wonderful, awesome daughters that I was just like, I need to figure out a way that I can become a better role model in terms of how marriage is supposed to work. And the book that I picked up was the 5 love languages, and you probably, I had really never thought about it in this way, but we all communicate differently. Of course, we know that between men and women, but then within both sex, it really actually doesn't matter. I mean, everybody communicates in a certain way and things that are really important. So it could be, words of affirmation or acts of service or whatever, and people resonate in different ways. And so, I think a lot of these things are all great tools that we can have towards trying to foster better relationships and trying to have, becoming the best you can be.
I agree. I mean, in some ways, I had somebody ask me recently, what's your love language? And I was like, all of them. I love acts of service, and I love words of affirmation and physical touch. And so for me, in a way, it's a little silly to think about limiting ourselves to just, like this is the main one. And the other part that kind of goes a little sideways for me is the idea that I'm going to focus on this one thing that I know my husband likes, because it really was so much more of a journey for me to focus on my own happiness. And then he will pile on. My husband will just, when he sees I'm smiling, laughing, dancing, singing, doing my happy dance, I'm never hotter to him than when I'm doing those things. So, and I think, for me, all men, respect is their love language.
Yeah.
And so every woman just learning that is actually so much more powerful. So for me, the love languages thing, obviously I read a lot of books too, trying to save my marriage. And I get kind of frustrated. In fact, I would like to punch people in the nose sometimes, because I've seen so much bad relationship advice out there. And it was the stuff I took on and I tried, and just it made me, made things worse. One of the things you read absolutely everywhere is, if your husband's not affectionate, you need to tell him that you have a grave concern about his lack of affection. And I was like, okay, like as if I hadn't thought of that already, right? And
yep.
Even if I would tell my husband, hey, I want you to hug me or something. If he did it, it didn't even scratch my itch, because what I really wanted was to feel desired. I just wanted my husband to feel so attracted to me.
Everybody wants that.
Everybody wants
right?
that.
That's just not a women thing. It's everybody.
Yeah, you're never going to get that by telling somebody to be more physically affectionate. It's just not going to happen.
So in the Surrendered Wife, in your book, you talk about these 6 intimacy skills. Can you give me just a couple without?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah. So throw some nuggets out there.
I'm on a mission to end world divorce, Mark. So I'll talk about this all day. I want every woman to get all the information she needs to really create not just an average relationship, but like you said, phenomenal. I say amazing and vibrant relationship. So let me give you. I want to talk about expressing your desires in a way that inspires. So what this is, I had the bad habit in the old days of saying to my husband, John, this kitchen is a disaster. And I thought he was going to jump up off the couch and start cleaning the kitchen, but that never happened for some reason, right? So, and what I've learned is that men can't even really hear us when we're complaining. All he heard was, John, blah, 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 blah. And now I understand that because his drive to make me happy is so strong, I can ignite his hero gene by just simply saying what I desire. So, and the formula for this, the phrasing I use is this, and it works great. And that is, I would love, and then I fill in the final outcome. So I'm not saying, and I don't use the word you, because that would be back to controlling again. So I would say, now I could just say, I would love a clean kitchen. And I said that to him many years ago, probably like 16 years ago. And he said, okay, because I'll do the dishes. And he did. And you know what? He's been doing them ever since because he knows it makes me happy. And here I tried begging, cajoling, and nagging, and repeating and making little spreadsheets with chores responsibilities on it. And that never got me anywhere. Just me stating a pure desire, though, without manipulation or control. It works every time. So I do that all the time now. I just really hone in on what it is I want. And gosh, the guy's just tripping over himself to give me those things, and he feels good, and I feel good about it.
Well, it almost sounds like you are you are like the step one book that people need to read, women need to read, in terms of ultimately then being able to have your love languages spoken back to you, right? Because if he's doing the it might be acts of service or something, but it's really figuring out and changing the way you communicate in a way that really activates your mate, right? To do the things that you want.
Absolutely. Like for me, I have a bunch of cheat phrases, I call them, because these, like, you use these phrases and men can hear you and they'll understand and you'll get the response that you want. And another one of them is in relinquishing inappropriate control. I have the phrase, whatever you think. So I'll give you an example of this. So one woman also suffering in her marriage, they've been sleeping in separate beds for 6 months. And she was just ready to get divorced. And she got her hands on the intimacy skills and learned about this cheat phrase. And she thought, what have I got to lose? Nothing. I'm going to try this. So her husband came to her and said, you need to tell me what you want me to do about the cell phone plan. We got to make a decision here. You got to tell me what you want. And she just turned to him and said, whatever you think. And that's the phrase to refer your husband back to his own thinking and empower him to take initiative again if you've been controlling. And he had been trained the opposite way. So he just looked at her funny. He goes, no, you got to tell me what you want me to do. And she just repeated herself. She said, whatever you think, I trust you. So he went away and made the decision about the cell phone plans all by himself. And that night he put his hand on her shoulder and said, you were so nice today. And tears just came out of her eyes. And they went into the same bed that night for the first time in 6 months. And that was 16 years ago. She still gets tears in her eyes when she talks about how wonderful her marriage is now, and what a shame it would have been to throw away this marriage. He's now the man of her dreams because she has these intimacy skills.
That's a beautiful story. I mean, it's just great, to probably in her mind, she was locked into what she thought would be her future. And by changing the way she communicated, it just literally created a whole new way of being. And, it sounds like she's in a great spot.
She is. And for me, it is a little bit beyond just communication because I really had to change the way I looked at the world. I had an unfortunate habit of being incredibly controlling. And I just had like a superiority complex over my husband. I thought I was the smarter person in the relationship. I'm ashamed to say, embarrassed to say. And because of that, I just didn't see any harm in, showing him how to make a budget or something like that. But helpful in wife language actually equals critical in husband language. So every time I was trying to help him, I was undermining our intimacy. I was just shooting holes in the bucket of our intimacy. And so what's been great is really
especially too, since guys want to be the alpha dog, right?
Yeah, I guess so. I mean, for me, it's just so complementary. Like the things that my husband wants from me are so complementary to the things that I want if we're both operating in our core geniuses. So my realms of expertise are desire and feelings and receptivity. Mm-hmm. And my husband wants to be admired for his thinking and for his accomplishments in the world. And I mean, that's so great. It's great. But I just didn't realize, I was always battling without knowing it, because he would make a comment and I'd be devil's advocate thinking I'm helping him think it through or something. And he just felt contradicted. He just felt like I was making him wrong all the time. And because I was. So for me, it was a fundamental shift in my. So here's what I came to realize: that control and intimacy are opposites. If I want to be in control, the intimacy is going to go, and the intimacy that I crave, if I want that, I got to let go of the control. So I always get to choose. And so what's happened is that I've realized that underneath that urge to control is always fear. I'm afraid I'm going to have to work longer or pay more or be lonely. And if I'm operating on my fear, I'm not really choosing my faith. And today it's so important to me. I want to be the woman who is trusting her husband, who's seeing his good qualities and believing in him. I want to be a woman of faith, if you will, because it's a lot more fun than being so fear-driven.
Yeah, no, all those things are, they're all, as you're going through, I was going, check, check, check. I would love to have all those things, right? And they're so important to guys.
Yeah, women want to feel safe and special, and men want to be admired and respected. And I honestly just did not know what respect looked like to men. It was, even to this day, when I write about respect, I'm like, you guys, I'm saying to other women, you guys, this is going to blow your mind. It still kind of shakes me up every time I think about it. But this is what respect looks like. For a woman, we'd say, I was respectful. I told them where I was going to be, or I was going to be late, or I didn't leave a mess. That has nothing to do with what men consider respect. For men, they want to have, and correct me if I'm wrong, but my husband wants me to honor his thinking. And that doesn't always mean that I agree. It just means that I honor it. It's valid. And so I just get so much further when I'm able to give him that and not, I'll give you, I'm not perfect with this stuff to this day, Mark. Like the other day we were out to eat. We're having this nice dinner. He's taking me to this nice restaurant. And in the middle of it, he's talking about work a little bit. He's talking about one of his clients. And I say something like, yeah, and that client doesn't really pay you on time, or something like that. I said something critical of his client. And he just immediately got this look on his face, because we have a pretty good culture of respect and gratitude around here. So when it goes missing, even for a second now, we're both pretty sensitive to it now. So he gets this look on his face like, he's just, I can tell. And I go, oh, was that disrespectful? And he goes, yeah. And I was like, oh. I go, John, I apologize for being disrespectful just now when I criticized your client. And he rightly took that as me trying to control how he operates his business. And I was, right? I kind of had my little finger in there. And it's just amazing that intimacy was immediately restored. It was just back. It was like nothing ever happened. So that's another magical cheat phrase that I love to use, that apologizing for being disrespectful, because it restores the intimacy and connection so quickly.
Yeah. So the word respect, again, it seems like it's an umbrella, and under that umbrella, you've got all these, admiration and honor your thinking, and there's other words in there too, but it all fits under that word respect, and it just covers a lot of territory.
Yeah, not interrupting, not rolling my eyes, and those are good qualities. Those are nice virtues to have anyway in the world. I just interrupted you, Mark. Actually, so funny. So maybe I'm not doing so well with that, but it is something that I felt just made me a better listener. Another one of my cheat phrases is, I hear you. And that's something I can use to, like, my husband will be talking something through, or he'll even be saying, I'm going to take my phone and throw it in the ocean, right? Like his business phone. And I'll be like, I hear you. I don't have to agree or disagree with that. I'm just bearing witness. I'm just letting him reason things out himself without implying that I need to jump in and tell him how to run things.
Yeah, no, that's just beautiful, and congratulations to you for being at a low point in your life and doing the necessary things that you needed to do to make your way back up to finding, really your summit, right? And your summit in terms of being, it's so near and dear to everybody, and that's having an awesome relationship. And some people have it, and a lot of people don't. And far too many people, me included, end up on the divorce circuit, and it's just no fun. And there's a lot of pain and suffering that goes through. And I think what you're talking about today is just like, hey, if everybody could just take a time out, and I could get my hands on these folks and these in particular women, and have a conversation with them and teach them some of the different strategies that really helped me and many, many other women in the same situation to go and, with the goal in mind of saving a marriage.
Yeah, and that, you just bring me present to my mission and the importance of it, Mark, which is to end world divorce, because it's so awful to suffer unnecessarily like I did, and I see so many women doing, because there is no relationships 101 in our schools. And, when I was in college, my textbooks for relationships were Cosmo and Glamour, and that was just not helpful. So it really is important to me to get every woman who wants this information, I want to get it into her hands. And the 6 intimacy skills are all laid out in the Empowered Wife, step by step, my newest book. And in fact, I actually have something fun going on right now. Can I?
Yeah, go for it.
So it's the Get Cherished Challenge. And this is where...
So I'm in. Go ahead.
It's so cute. So you go to getcherished.com, and you can also read a free chapter of The Empowered Wife there. But the main thing is, if you sign up, I'm going to send a series of 5 experiments that you can try in your relationships. So some of it's these cheat phrases I'm talking about, like when and how to use them for greatest effect. And you can just try them on. And that's what I did in my marriage, right? I just experimented with things. And if they worked, I kept them. If they didn't, I threw them out. You're always the expert on your own life and what fits for you. But I think it's fun to stretch and grow and try something new. And but my experience is, if you do these challenges over the next 5 days after you sign up, I want you to feel cherished by this weekend. And that's what we see happens.
Oh, that is so great. Love it. Love it. Love all the stuff, all the content, all your learnings, everything you had to share. So Laura, where can people find you?
Well, you can, so getcherished.com is where the Get Cherished Challenge is. My blog is at lauradoyle.org. Or right now, actually, I have a new TV series on Amazon called Empowered Wives. So that's another great introduction to... Look
at you. You just...
6 intimacy skills, I'm telling you.
Oh, man.
Out of fear and jump for your life, these opportunities just are... And it's something I'm just so passionate about. So I'm really grateful for every platform, including yours, Mark. It's so generous of you to have me on today.
Yeah, no, I feel very purposeful from playing in the NFL to... starting these different businesses and climbing these crazy mountains all over the world. It's really been a kind of work in progress, which has kind of landed me at where I'm at today, which is really trying to be purposeful, learn from my mistakes, and go forward and talk to a lot of people like you that have gone through adversity and overcome it and found a better way. And that's what this whole thing is about.
Well, you are the master of reinventing yourself as well, which I really admire, and you've had incredible success yourself. So it's really just an honor to get to talk to you and be on your show.
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And again, I'm just up the street, so to speak, in Hermosa Beach, and love to connect with you in person sometime. So on that note, Laura, thank you so much. I mean, it's been a tremendous amount of value for me and hopefully other people. And, I think you're just on the right track.
Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you so much for listening to the Find Your Summit podcast. We are so glad to have you along for this journey. And if you enjoyed the show, please tell a friend, share it on iTunes, spread it to the planet. We're looking to broadcast this to every person that is out there because, as you know, everybody has their own summit that they're going after. If you're looking to follow my journey, you can find that through my social links on markpattisonnfl.com. That's M-A-R-K, Pattison, P-A-T-T-I-S-O-N, NFL.com. So, until the next podcast, just remember, clear eyes, full hearts. It takes a little more to make a champion, so make it happen. Thank you. Bye.